So with this, again, a warm welcome in today's embedded special interest group work meeting between the Europe and Asia time zone, start of January. So hope you're all feeling well. And I'm not sure, have you found the time to look at the recording or at the notes from the last meeting on January 7th, or shall we recap quickly?
I guess a quick recap would be fine.
Alrighty. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm going to share the notes quickly. Need to decide for a tool. I'm taking this one. Just take the plain one from GitHub. So quickly opening the notes. The last time we met in US Europe time zone, January 7th. The topics we talked about quickly last time was there's a typo in here, was the requirement for memory protection units, so MPUs, or memory management units, so MMUs on embedded devices. And to cut it short, we found that there is, to our knowledge, none of the hardware classes we are looking at right now, Cortex-M and RISC-V and so on and so forth, they all have some kind of memory protection on it, be it MPU in the ARM context or PMP in the RISC-V context. And the only restriction is around MMUs, memory management units, which are, at least for ARM, not available for the mobile class, the M class, but only for the application class. But an MPU will be there. So we can fairly assume that whatever we are looking at and whatever we are trying to achieve, we can request the presence of an MPU. Some of the devices which do have an MPU today do not use it. This is another topic, but it is present. This is an assumption we took and just wanted to check, especially with the Asia time zone, if this is something you could agree with.
To me, this makes sense.
Alrighty. The second half of the meeting, or the third or whatever, we went over the shared memory proposals which are out there, and there's a lot of discussion around. I think I have it open here. Yeah, so we have the bigger PR from Chris, which I would kindly ask you again to review and give your comments, that we can bring it to that we can close the PR eventually. Check where let me put the link quickly to the chat, if I can find it. I only use Zoom for these meetings, so I need to be retrained every 2 weeks. Sorry for being slow. So we have this big proposal from Chris, proposing six different options on how to look at or how to implement shared memory. Option 4 is favored by Midokura, and option 5, I think, is something which especially the component model guys can get behind. So there are a lot of discussions. There's a breakout discussion, if you scroll down a little bit here, from Luke Wagner, and so on and so forth. And this is basically what we talked about. blah blah blah. Yeah. So Christoph, oh, it's not. Is it? It's merged. I think Christoph Pettich had introduced three phases of shared memories, as stated here. Yeah. Any questions on the summary or any additions? Something you would like to go deeper into?
Not from my side. The thing is, the three phases of how to go forward with the shared memory implementation is more or less who's taking care about it, who's going forward for it, who wants to
Mhm.
volunteer, kind of. Um, yeah. I think one of the key notes that have been written down was that there is no one size fits all approach. Apparently, as said, for me, the option 4 is good enough, as it seems. So having a kind of shared memory between WebAssembly modules by themselves on the heap of the runtime. For others, this is not enough. Having a kind of a shared memory with other processes outside the embedders heap.
Mhm.
So shared heap is not enough there. And questions about synchronization, etc., kick in also. But as Christoph proposed, and I think this is the way to go, should be tackled, but must not be tackled at the very same time when doing shared memory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Talking about synchronization, I found this note here that Marcin is going to have a discussion about multi-threading. I think Marcin, you're in the call. Can I put you on spot? Sorry for that. Is there progress on this one?
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I don't have a video. Something happened to my camera today.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I had a chat with Andrew Brown, who is one of the champions of the new threading proposal, because Chris raised a concern that the current proposal is based on component model, and so I wanted to get a little clarity on that. And so turns out that it is in fact based on the component model, because there was so initially the proposal was to add a new instruction to WebAssembly, which is thread spawn, and that there was a lot of pushback from the browsers community on that. So eventually, this spawning mechanism was implemented as a sort of like a WASI function, I would say, more like a kind of like an intrinsics, but because at the moment WebAssembly doesn't have a concept of intrinsics, this was implemented based on the component model. What I'm going to do next is to actually raise a proposal for WebAssembly to introduce intrinsic functions. And if we do that, that means that we will not have to rely on a component model when we're talking about the multi-threading. Also, I think it's, even if that somehow won't go through, it's not end of the world to have it as a component model, because eventually you can always unwrap the module to be just a core module. So yeah, I think it looked a bit scary when I saw Chris' email, but when I had the chat with Andrew Brown, I think it's not that bad, because yeah, as I said, under the hood it will be just a call to the host which is like, the imported functions, for example. So I think, but in order to completely get rid of the component model, we'd need to have a mechanism in WebAssembly to define something like intrinsic functions. And then we can rely on that feature when implementing the multi-threading proposal, because there's no actually any requirement to use component model. It is just because there are no other mechanisms to achieve what they wanted.
Does it make sense to explore a little bit more what you mean about intrinsics in that context?
Sure. So, not sure if you're familiar with how WASI threads are implemented right now. But basically, the approach is that you have a one function called thread spawn, which is expected to be implemented by the host. It's imported by the module, and when you do, for example, pthread create under the hood, it will create that thread spawn function, and then the host will take care of everything. So for the shared everything threads proposal, which is the new multi-threading proposal, is pretty much the same. But it's just because we don't have a mechanism to define sort of like imported functions from the host, or as I call them, intrinsics, currently in WebAssembly, other than through a component model. We use component model for that. But if we had any other mechanism, we wouldn't have to use component model.
Sorry, maybe I missed something, but you have the possibility, for example, in Grammar to define functions, prototypes kind of, that can be called from inside the sandbox. And these functions just call either a native lib function or a function that is directly defined in Grammar.
Yes, you have that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and isn't this already an intrinsic then? Kind of. It's not standardized for sure, but
yeah, that's the thing. We're talking about the standardization of shared everything, so we cannot rely on mechanisms that are available in some runtimes.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we'd have to standardize the intrinsics approach. I think it's not really a new concept, because that's more or less how WASI Preview 1 was implemented, and that's how, yeah, it could be very similar to imported functions, I think. It will be just some special functions that have to be implemented by the host.
Right. So that's why I'm asking. To me, it sounds that with intrinsics, you give the approach that has been taken with WASI P1 another name.
Yes.
And so my question would be if the very same concerns that came up with WASI P1 will come up again.
I think there is maybe a sub, even though, at first it looks like it's the same thing. I think there might be a subtle difference in terms of semantics of that. Imported functions, can come from different places. You can have another module that provides you that import. Whereas, intrinsic is something that is very sort of built into the runtime.
Right, and you compile. So,
yeah, it's.
I just want to understand, because I can imagine that there are some discussions coming up in that consensus range. So that's why I want to make it a little bit clearer, at least for me.
Yeah, sure.
You have, with WASI P1, one of the major concerns was that you have a quite big list of functions that a runtime has to implement on very different platforms. So if you have WASI P1, which is kind of a POSIX, then you have, again, a POSIX implementation for every specific runtime, for Ceph, for RTOS, Linux, you name it. And that was one of the major concerns, because this, of course, besides the fact that maybe semantics are not that clear enough, this implies a lot of effort, because you have to maintain it for different systems on different platforms, and the compiler has to know it, because you have to compile a WebAssembly module with wasm32 minus WASI P1, WASI Preview 1, whatsoever. So this binds the compilation of a WebAssembly module to a specific system interface implementation, or in the old world, we call it a C runtime library. So down in the WASM world. And this was one of the major concerns. So the component model tried to get rid of those fixed set of functions and to make it more componizable, kind of. So you choose to have an fopen, then you have a width file that defines fopen. And you can more or less on load time load it into it, and the WebAssembly module can import it. Another WebAssembly module can export it. So we have a much more flexible kind of system interface thing, with a possibility of intermixing languages, etc. Now, when we're talking about intrinsics, then this is bound as a standardized set of system functionality that comes pre-bundled with a runtime. And because then it would be a standard, the WebAssembly module must be compiled and comply to this system interface standard that we now call an intrinsic. So the question is, the ones who do not want to have WASIP1, why should they, when we call it an intrinsic, want it?
Yeah. So I think those are two different things. WASI is a system interface, right? It's not part of the core language itself, whereas the intrinsics are part of the language. And I don't think it's actually a new concept. Maybe it's not just been standardized, but if you, for example, look at the what was the name of that? String refs, I think. Proposal. You got kind of like intrinsics. You have a string dot new UTF-8, string dot whatever. So what I'm thinking we could do is to have this this approach sort of formalized and standardized of defining those intrinsics, and they're not part of any system interface. They're part of the language, just like, I don't know, in Python 2.x, I think you got the print, which was a part of the language. It wasn't a function from a standard library. So that, because that's basically what we, if we don't do that, then basically we bound a component model with a WebAssembly standard. Because if the shared everything threads becomes a WebAssembly standard, that means that it's basically the component model becomes kind of like an integral part of the standard. Whereas I think the component model should probably stay, you know, away from the core WebAssembly.
Yeah, maybe on top of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
right.
but
I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned that as soon as we, accept this for the first time, that becomes a precedence, and then more and more features will be built on top of that. So I would like us to, keep
Gotcha.
this. Yeah.
So the difference, I compare it with LLVM, right? First, the intrinsic LLVM.num copy. It's part of the language definition of LLVM intermediate representation, for example. And you don't see a definition for it, but if you have then a backend compile for a native target, then usually this becomes a mem copy. So a C runtime mem copy, kind of, but it's part of the language. Which means that this LLVM file that has an LLVM.mem copy will not be compilable if the underlying system does not provide an implementation for mem copy. That's what I'm saying. That's what I understand as an intrinsic. And as far as I understood, the very same now holds for the proposal to do this in the WASM bytecode. So we have a kind of a mnemonic, an encoding for maybe thread spawning.
Yeah.
Did I get it right? Is this the basic proposal?
Yeah, I'm not still clear on the definition of the intrinsics within a WebAssembly. I don't even know if we call it intrinsics, maybe something else. But I don't think it would be exactly as memcopy, an example that you provided, for two reasons. So first of all, memcopy is actually an instruction in WebAssembly, right? So, and this will not be, well, thread spawn or whatever we call it, will not be actually an instruction. And then in terms of the LLVM and then further compilation to a target platform, this is, you cannot implement it in a way or compile it in a way that it will not make any syscalls, unfortunately. But WebAssembly is also not like a typical target. It's a little bit of abstraction on top of the actual hardware targets, right? So I don't think we have to stick to the same definitions when we're talking about intrinsics. Or maybe we shouldn't just call them intrinsics. Maybe we should call them something else.
Yeah, and I'm very curious in how this discussion develops. This could be a way forward.
I'm yet to document my thoughts and share it with the community to see what they think. But I also will share it with this community as well for feedback. But basically, just to summarize, the multi-threading is currently based on component model, but it doesn't have to be. It's just because we don't have any other mechanisms to achieve a similar functionality in WebAssembly. And I think we should discuss whether we should have such a functionality.
Gotcha. Thanks. I'm with you. So.
Yeah. Let me know if you want to be involved in the discussions more.
Just put me on the list if you want. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, thanks for the deep dive clarification. Just to be super sure that we all understand the same. I'm not sharing my screen anymore.
You're sharing your screen.
I just have the notification that I have it paused for whatever reason. Let's see. Okay. Just to be super sure. So we are talking about the thread proposal in here when we talk about you mentioned a proposal, or is there something else you were talking about?
Sorry, which one? Can you select the part that you want me to comment on?
Okay, I'm not sharing anymore. 1 second.
No, I think you did share, but I just didn't see what you're talking about.
No, no, I had this 1 second. I had a message that I stopped sharing. I paused sharing. So now you should see the screen I'm referring to.
Oh yeah. This is
so this is the WebAssembly proposals list.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the thread proposal.
No. It's if you scroll down. This threads proposal that you're referring to is the introduction of atomics, weight instructions. This is shared everything proposal. I don't know, is this phase 1 or? Oh yeah, this one, exactly.
Sorry.
That's right.
I'm obviously not very good in reading. So I will just put the link in the chat for completeness reasons. So better to ask. Thanks. Yeah. I was going through the list 2 times and did not find the share everything. Sorry for that. Okay. So now halftime is over. Anything about the last meeting to clarify, or are we feeling well prepared to look for the things we have planned for this meeting?
We have, according to the notes, We have the bridge between WASI P1,
Yes.
P2 and WASI P1 environments.
Yes.
Yeah. So I recall that we have talked about the idea of having adapters, the idea of unpacking components. So unpacking kind of the core module of the components and having kind of adapters that could be provided via another WebAssembly module that do the marshalling and stubbing that might be implied by the widget description file that also comes with a component. So I think that was one of the discussions we've had a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah, I think that came from me as well. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to prepare anything for this discussion for this week. So we can have a chat, but maybe it would be better if I just do a little prep work beforehand and then we can discuss it over the data that I collected.
Yeah. You could put me on the list too if you want.
Yeah, so I'll do it for the next meeting with Europe. So I think the next one is US Asia, so that'll be the one after this.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so then it doesn't really make sense to take on this topic, or is there some?
Hi, grüß euch.
So just actually wanted to ask whether this is anyone is actually interested in Preview 2 to Preview 1 compatibility or not really?
Sprechen.
You hear me now?
Yes, and your colleague is much quieter.
Oh, great. So I'm very sorry that my laptop chose to use the laptop mic.
It sounded that it chose to use the microphone from your colleague, so he was super
Yeah.
clear. Yeah. I
Very
mean,
nice.
still some Swabonian in between, so hard to understand, but
Okay, thanks for the hint. Sorry about that.
you're welcome. Yeah, so if you maybe could restart, because the last two sentences were pretty hard to understand.
Yeah, no problem. So I think this the question of how to manage kind of backward compatibility. So you have a WASI P2 component and how to use it in a WASI P1 environment is to me a very important milestone in order to milestone to find out what this means, because it gives us a gut feeling what it takes to do all the maintenance and adaptation efforts that come up when WebAssembly is in the field, when WebAssembly is in the environment and you're not able to update the WebAssembly runtime, what do you do with a new component, right? What does it take to make it work on a WASI-P1 environment? No one thinks that everything will just work and will be backward compatible, but migration paths must be given. And if the answer from the community is don't use WASI, preview something in any product that you cannot update fast, then I think this is a really tough hurdle to take when it comes to a product decision.
But do you already have any runtimes implementing P1 interface in production that you cannot update, or is it just a hypothetical?
We are thinking about using WebAssembly in upcoming products, and of course we are seeing that the WASI, let's call it ecosystem, is moving fast, and so the question is, what do you do if you have a runtime out there? And it's based on WASI P1, and a customer now wants to use a component, obviously WASI P2 or later. And now the customer says, okay, my compiler is not running. What do I do?
Right. But given that you don't have any runtimes in production yet, is there any reason why you wouldn't implement the preview to interfaces in the runtime before you make a deployment?
Yeah, we would not use it nowadays, WASI P2, because of the performance issues we have seen.
Oh, okay. Got it.
That's the reason. And yes, I think the most of the embedded folks need some kind of connection to the outside world. So we are talking of kind of cyber-physical systems. As also Emily Ruppel told at the WASMCon 2023, I guess. It's basically the same, right? As we are doing products that interact with the real world and are not just running in a browser or on a server. Hence, we need some connection outside the sandbox, and this must be done in a performant way. Right, and if everything is based on shared nothing is nice, but if it just does not fit in the non-functional requirements that we have, we need to find other ways.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so it looks like you have two paths forward. Either you use preview one and then we figure out the adaptation and the backward compatibility, or the P2 or whatever future preview is actually performant and then you switch to that instead.
It could also be the case that we use no WASI at all.
Yeah,
so
that's
that could just use the WebAssembly core and the sandbox. That's just fine. And everything that goes outside is provided by us, by ourselves. And so it's proprietary, which is not nice for sure. But if this does the job, then this could be a decision to go. And maturity of the WASI system and migration concepts are one cornerstone to decide whether to use WASI or not.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, cool. So looks like there's some interest from Siemens. Anyone else has any anecdotes to share that would be useful for them?
Sure. This is Stephen from Adam. I want to echo a lot of what was just said. I think the reality today is component model support 0.2, 0.3 is largely confined to WASM time. And those of us using things like WAMR, there's no component model support. And so without an adapter, I think we have two choices. We can not move anything forward and not participate in anything. Let's take HTTP, for example. That's a P2 interface. There's nothing we can do in P1 to use that or really contribute to that because there's no way for us to do that. The other option is to go completely proprietary. And so I think what we want to avoid is people going that proprietary route, but we need a path for people to participate in that. And so I think what you just said, I think it was Marcin that just said there's two ways forward. One is we have, a component model or 0.2, 0.3, whatever that might be, that is performant and then well implemented on multiple runtimes, including things like Whammer. Or we have a way to do adaptation, because that adaptation would allow us to still participate in the WASI interfaces that are being standardized going forward. So I'm definitely interested in a similar vein to the previous the person from Siemens.
Okay, cool. I think also as important is the timeline, right? Because the moment you deploy a runtime that does not implement preview 2 and you stick to preview 1 and you cannot update it, I don't know if that's just Amazon or any other companies have the same problem, but we cannot update the runtime once we ship it. So you have to basically stick to that forever, and that is our problem. We need to support preview 1 runtimes for at least 5 more years.
Yeah. I think we're going to be in a similar situation. I wouldn't say we can't update them, but I would say updating them has a lot of friction. It might have to pass safety certification. It might have to pass security certification. In general, it's not going to be something that many of our customers are going to update very, very often. And so, if we have to update it in some cases, that might be okay. But I think if there's options to allow us to not do that and use these adaptations, shim layers, whatever we come up with, I think that's super desirable, even in our case where we could, under some circumstances, update the runtime.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Thanks a lot for sharing. So yeah, I'll probably have some time this month to work on that, and I'll present something on the next Europe meeting.
Excellent. And if there's anything I can do to help, please reach out directly, and I'll see what I can do to help.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Thanks.
Also, this is Christoph. I have specific interest in the area between WASI P2 and WASI P1, especially because I just used Whammer before. And I just created this adapter which you can statically link to your WASI P2, to your WASI P1 binary to just get a WASI P2 module, so a core module which has WASI P2 interfaces. And I think this has later been called WASI P2 module or WASI T2. And this is a very interesting point to take a look at, because it's basically a WASI P1 module, but all the interfaces are WASI P2 defined. So it gives you best of both worlds.
Yeah. So I think what I need to do is the other way around. So I have a P2 module which I compiled with the most recent toolchain, and I need to make it compatible with P1 runtime. So the adaptation will be the other way around, I guess.
Has anyone ever tried to link a shared library, a static library to an existing module before? Because it feels like actually fusing the adapter by relinking might be a very interesting solution to just not. Right now, for the component model, you just create multiple modules and link them with the component connections. But if you were able to just link multiple core modules into a core module, that would be really nice.
Yeah, I've done this already. I got a POC for that.
Is there anything you could share about that?
Yeah, I should have it somewhere on my GitHub. So I'll reach out to me after this call.
Okay.
And I'll try to find it.
Thank you.
It's actually I can't remember. It was. Yeah, I need to refresh my knowledge on that because I did that last year. But yeah, I'll have a look and I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thanks for going into details. So still, Marcin, you're going to prepare something for our next meeting weeks ahead.
Yes, I'll do
And
my
we
best.
can look into it. Yeah. But I would say there seems to be some interest on this topic, so it's not a waste of time or energy.
I mean, this is a problem that I have to solve for my company. So definitely not a waste of time. The question is, can we collaborate on that? It looks like there's some interest, so perhaps we can. Yeah.
Yeah. So
as said, the concern is also on our side.
Yeah. So what I mean, it's not a Martian problem. I think it seems to be an us problem. So we should solve it together. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
agree.
really appreciate that you're preparing something and then really looking into let's say finding a good common solution. Okay, are there other topics for today? I have like 5-ish minutes left. You have 15 minutes left. I can stop the sharing, I think. So I don't have any new particular topic I want to open. Basically, just wanted to look into the topics we brought up last time.
Dominic, I took some notes. Besides, I will send it afterwards to you.
Awesome. Anyone has any topic, or shall we come to an end? Or does it make sense to open a new other topic?
I think we can take a few minutes back.
Yeah. Okay. Then you need to go as well, Martin. I read. So then, thanks for the vivid discussion and contribution. I think we made quite some progress, and really looking forward to see you all the next time. And with that, all the best. Enjoy your week. See you around. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye bye.